Hey guys, welcome back to Painting After Dark. This next one is going to be another painting tutorial. It is going to be with a miniature. Uh, I wasn't 100% sure what mini it was going to be, but I think I figured it out. And this is just, just a really brief intro. I've been working a lot on getting my studio set up a little better, more equipped to deal with making more content and just having a little bit more space, having a little bit more organization. And so that's what I've been working on. And that's why I haven't really had anything new come out. It's another one of the reasons why the last video I did was more of an unboxing and not really like painting or anything like that. I assure you, painting is coming. And this is going to be one of those. So again, thank you very much to everyone who has liked, subscribed, commented or shared, any of that stuff. It's greatly appreciated. It's going to help me out a lot. So, just keep hitting the like button and subscribe button. Even the notification, if you care about what I'm doing, hit the notification button. And thanks again. Hopefully you enjoy this video. It should be a fun one. Thanks, guys. Take care. I have been searching for information about this particular character. He is clearly a third-party, 3D printed kind of dude, and I wasn't sure who he was, so I spent about the last hour scouring the internet, and I could only come up with one or two options. He's either just some sort of generic gray wolf, which I'm not using that color scheme, so that's pretty shit out the window, or he is supposed to be Horus before the heresy. I know a little bit about the lore when it comes to Warhammer, but not a ton. The Horus theory seems decent, but again, it's not really it's not like a wolf, like a full wolf. Anyways, I don't want to babble on too long. I had already started to prime this guy, or he's already been primed. I had already started to base this guy. So I started to base him. I had a surgery about a month ago, and I thought it would be a good idea to set up a little painting station and just try to get him based was really the goal there. I didn't get very far. I started reading some stuff and I started looking into some other things, and I never really got to base him completely, even though I had all of the paint set out. Remember, I am using the new, so nice, and it's going to look like crap here soon, the new wet palette, the Exemplar from Game Envy. We're going to give that a shot. We're going to put it to the test during this painting. And I'm excited about this one. I assumed that this one would be fine to just bring you guys in halfway through. I know it kind of sucks, but at the same time, initially when I had primed this guy, I thought he was going to be a part of an army. So I primed him expecting to use like speed paints and contrast paints. And that's not the case. He is not going to be Nurgle. I was going to chop his head off and put a different head in there and add some tentacles and some other things. But I kind of like him as is. He's just kind of a cool model. So what we're going to do is we are going to start to do some blending. Obviously, we're going to try to do as much basing as we can, get that knocked out of the way. And we need to base everything, obviously, before we move on to the other steps. As you saw, I had two specific colors. This one is the Sanguine Shadow from P3. And then the other one is Blood Red from Adam. Adam is currently my favorite paint line. I have been using a lot more of it, even though I haven't been painting as much. And this base coat that you see is just the Sanguine Shadow. So to get a good middle ground, because I don't want to do, as I build up the layers, I don't want him to end up with like an orange or yellow or pink, which means that we're going to have to mix some of the sanguine shadow and the blood red into a kind of mid-tone for him, and then apply it, and then go once again over that with the bright blood red, and that should hopefully give us our layers. Um, Obviously, with the base coat, you want to kind of use it directly out of pot. That is usually the rule of thumb, and then we are going to start to water down every consistent layer beyond that. That is strictly so we get a better blend, and you can go back in and kind of blend it. For oil painters, it would be more like glazing. So you kind of thin down your pigment a little bit and move it where it needs to be, go over certain spots, and it starts to pick up. And it's just called glazing. It's a really good technique, and you can apply that here with minis. So as you can see, as we apply this paint, we are applying it in a way we're not going wall to wall with it. Let's see if I can bring this up closer for you. We're not going to go wall to wall with it. What we are going to do is we're going to try to paint the highlights. And this second layer isn't really super necessary, because we're eventually going to paint those highlights one more time, and then we're also going to do an edge highlight. So we're going to keep doing this all over this model. We're going to keep bringing in, this is that mix of the two. And we're really just kind of trying to hit highlights. It's thinned down enough. We could even thin it out just a tiny little bit more. It's still a little bit of a thicker consistency, but this is part of the process. You kind of see it, and the great thing is when we're using thinner layers, they dry pretty fast. And it might even dry to the point where it almost looks like the same color, but it's not. So we're just going to keep doing that all over the whole model, wherever it sits. We know for sure that there should be some here, and we can go over all of that filigree. We're going to bring it down, because this is most likely where that light would hit. I'm just going to kind of lighten it up a little bit more even. We're going to start working that all over the model, just like that. You can't really even see it on his foot, but once we do the next, and that's kind of what you want. Once we do the next layer, you're going to start to see it more, and that's the correct way to layer. So here we are in our current state. What I'm going to end up doing is probably finishing off most of his trim and most of the other stuff off camera. But I wanted to show you kind of the transition that we have going on here. And what I ended up doing, I'm a little disappointed because I had to do things backwards. I picked up these couple of paints, Vallejo Express Intense Colors. It's terrible. Anyways, yeah. And focus, there we go. These are apparently similar to speed paints and contrast. I did not know that. I thought that they were just like regular paints, but now that I look at it, the consistency is, they're pretty thin in there, which is okay. I obviously ended up putting that on there and realized that, but all this stuff under here is going to be shadowed. I'm going to go in there with a darker color and shadow it all. But I had picked up these three specifically because I was going to be doing, and if you look at these, the transition is really nice, obviously, from the dark to light. So now I have to go backwards because it was more like a contrast paint. And it's not a big deal. It's just a little bit more work, but you can see that I'm using the next step. So the lighter tone was on there first. I wanted to see just how the yellow would take, and then I was just going to go over it with the darker color. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of like this anyways. I think it's going to pop a little bit more. But so I'm going to go in and do that and try to get his shield done and maybe his sword. I was thinking of doing non-metallic metal for this one, but I don't know yet. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. But I at least want to get the rest of him based and finished. So we are almost done with the basing completely. Again, there's still some spots that we are going to hit up. There's probably going to be some washes being thrown around, and we'll get to that soon. We have a few spots down in there, a couple spots here, his sword. There's a few spots that still need to be tended to for the most part. You get to kind of see what he's looking like. And yeah, there's some messy parts, and those parts will be taken care of shortly. There's always going to be messy parts in this stage. This is usually the longest stage. You have to base everything, and then you start to wash and detail and do all of that fun stuff. But one thing I wanted to mention about this particular character is he has some really cool little like gems or just things on his armor like that. And he's already really warm toned. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out a color, which I've done, to kind of set off some of the warm, just warm on warm tones. And what I'm using is the bright blue from Adam. So I think this color next to that is going to really, really pop. Really amazing how my dog always knows when I'm about to do something important. Wants to chomp on his little bat. See that against all those colors just looks really, really great. Yeah, that's definitely what I was looking for. Cool. I'm going to continue on that. So the next bit we're going to tackle is doing some non-metallic metal on his sword. And if you're unfamiliar with non-metallic metal, non-metallic metal is essentially just using multiple colors of paints to kind of mimic a metal or chrome or something along those lines. And then once you get your desired look, you can start doing some edge highlighting. Edge highlighting is literally just using the edge of your brush, going over top edges. So a little bit of that. You can clean it up in here some, or you can literally just put a little bit of a line in there. Like that. Now, there you go. Now, this is just one example of non-metallic metal. There's a whole bunch, and I need to clean up a little bit of that down in there. It's a little too dark. but it's an odd area to hit on video. So I was just working on it off camera, kind of showing you guys what's possible. All right. So we are making some really good progress here, and we're starting to get close to that point. Not everything is completely based. We still don't have this guy in here. We still don't have the little stuff in here. Some of that stuff I'll probably do off camera. But the next bit that we're going to do is we are going to do some shading on this guy, and we are going to get rid of some of the imperfections that we did just kind of quickly. You can see some of the flaws here with the gold or silver, whatever we used. So the way that I do it is I just start applying the Nuln Oil in areas where it should be, more in the recessed areas. It's going to darken everything up, and then you'll also get to hit any areas that kind of have some imperfections. I don't want to use a ton of this. I actually have it towards my offhand here. But as you see, it's going to pool up in those recesses, and it's going to make it look like there's necessary shades back there. It will darken up some of this up, but that's okay. We kind of want that. The same thing with, I will use a different thing for a different color or shade or whatever for the metallics. I think metallics just look better with specific washes if you're going to use a wash. But anyways, we'll do this, and we'll repeat this as many times as necessary to make sure that all of these recesses looked recessed. That's the whole point of shading, is to make it look shaded. I will go over a lot of this with the shading, um, primarily because we're going to do a dry brush over top of this when we're done. When the shading is all dry, we're going to do a nice dry brush really, really high up here in this area, and then we're going to bring it down and make it obviously less pronounced down here. And then after we do that, we will do one more pass. So a lot of this stuff, again, we're not going to necessarily do it on camera for time's sake, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of the knowledge there on how I'm going to approach this. So if you don't see it, you kind of at least have the, well, he said it. He said exactly what he did. So one of my favorite Citadel colors is actually a shade. And I started using this back with my Necron army because I like grimdark. I like the style of grimdark. I like things to look a little more dark and grim, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you get the point. But this was one of the colors that I really used for them. And obviously they're metallic. They're, Terminator dudes. And I fell in love with using this stuff. This was super cool. I would do 2 or 3 layers of different variations of metal, and then I would lightly dab them with this stuff in specific areas, or put it in some of the recesses. And it looked so good. So I use this a lot now. Anytime I'm going over metallics, instead of using something like, say, like a shade, or like Nuln Oil, or even Agrax Earthshade. This is one of the few that I use when it comes to metal, just because the way that it settles is so good. Now we're just going to add a little bit of pink to this dude's entrails or whatever is going on here. I'm not 100% sure what's happening. I don't know if this is a cyborg dude. I don't know if this is a human that he's stepping on, but we're gonna add some fleshy colors to this. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over that, some blood for the blood god, make it nice and gory the way I like it. I'm gonna take a big glop of this. I'm gonna put it on my wet palette. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big glop of it, and I'm going to put it right outside of that dude's entrails. And this stuff does take a little bit to dry, which is nice. Do it just like that. We'll put some on his entrails too. What I'm about to do, some right in there. Actually, we'll do it while it's still wet too. I'm going to combine the two and get it up in the recesses there. Either way, I think that looks good. I mean, it's fine. We don't need too much more. We could actually do a little bit more of the technical, like underneath, and we can have it actually kind of pooling out a little bit. There's no need to not. If we're doing gore effects, we might as well just do gore and just let it be what it is. Again, we're talking about a grimdark universe here. There needs to be a little bit of gore, in my opinion. We'll just have it kind of running over there. There we go. Cool. This is snazzy enough for me. I think that's fine. I think that's cool. As we almost finish with this particular model, we are going to start doing the final touches. And one of those final touches is some dry brushing on his back here. And I'm just going to use like a tan and a really beat up brush. This brush is beat. You can see that. But these type of brushes usually work really good for dry brushing. So I'm going to dip it in to my color, make sure that my brush is a little damp, start moving it around, maybe pick up a little bit more pigment, and I'm just going to start to airbrush a little bit across here. We're just trying to pick up all the highlights, all the high points. That's it. We're not trying to go super hard here. Just trying to hit all of those top areas. And not even so much down here. Up here is where you really want to try to start hitting those sweeping motions. I do that a lot. I like sweep back and forth with a lot of aggression, and you can already see that that dry brush is happening. That's how we achieve that. Usually, if I'm not doing this, I paint pretty fast. So this is a little bit more of a time dump for me, because I'm not used to having to go back and forth and try all these different things. I just paint and go for it. But I think, again, this has been really, really fun and important for me to take a step back and realize that I can help people do the things that I enjoy. Anyways, so you see that we're starting to pick up all that color, but everything else is still laying underneath. The darker tones are there, lighter tones are there, and even in some points, I do a little bit up here. You don't even really need to dry brush. You can actually let some of that wet paint hit the top, but you just need to Be really gentle with it. That was wet. It was more wet than it was dry. I think as you build up, um, sometimes maybe you want more wet than dry. You can see the other side here. You know, it's a big difference. So keep keep going down and working against the grain. Again, you don't want to go with the grain this way because you'll start to get into all those little cracks and crevices, which we don't want. Next, we're going to use some flesh tone from Adam, and we're just going to kind of go in and try to hit all of these high points here on his nose, eyebrows, a little bit on his forehead. A lot of his forehead is going to be shadowed in there, blocked off, so we don't need a ton. Just to give him a little bit more, we could probably even go in there and get his cheeks, just to add a little bit more. On this guy, because he is a third-party mini, his eyes are not really prominent in there, and I'm not going to waste the time. Sometimes you just have to say fuck it and not worry too much about a specific detail, especially if it's going to make the mini look wonky, which I believe that would probably make him look goofy. All of his insignia and stuff, like all these little spots here, I don't really know what to do. So I'm just going to leave them blank, I don't necessarily need to go in there and go balls to the wall with it. There's no need for that. Down in here, we got this little hair trophy, these little skulls. With that. And again, when I go in there with the shade, it'll hit all that. It'll be fine. We'll do a little bit of the skin tone on this guy too. Just a tiny little bit. Just where it matters. So here I'm just going over the base with a light dry brush. We're just using some grays here. I had unfortunately lost some of my audio, so I'm having to kind of do a voiceover. We are using just a straight white, and we're just kind of adding some little dabs of white at the top of all the different gems just to give it a nice gleam and shine. I really like to do that. It really makes everything look more three-dimensional. And since we already had a little bit of three-dimensional stuff going on there, especially with the non-metallic metal, I thought that would look really good. And just taking over another once over. I think here we are using more of the white tone and just kind of just hitting the very high eyebrows and all of the high points on those skulls. We didn't want to do too much there. Just enough. Again, there was so much I could have done with this model and a lot more that I wish I could have done. What I ended up doing here is I was trying to make his cloak look dirty, like he was, walking through some kind of crazy, muddy
I mean, he's been traveling, so of course there should be some mud and some of that kind of stuff. And the technique that I use for this um, is I try to blend it into the layer that's already there. So I'll use a pretty messy brush, and I will go over both the base, and then I'll just kind of dab some up on the spots that I need it. I'll do this with a lot of models because it just adds a little bit more of that realistic bit to it. And then, as you see, I take a pretty beat up brush. That brush has had its day in the sun, and I will kind of just dab it around. There's not really much of a reason to try to make it look smooth because it's supposed to be, like wet mud, stuff like that. So overall, I had a lot of fun painting this one. There's a few little hiccups that I had, and again, I'm not out here as some professional painter, so what you get with me is a little bit more loose, and I'm a little less concerned about what other people are going to think about the paint job, as long as it's really nicely done. I think it's nicely done, but you can use that technique to kind of get like the dirty look. You could do that a couple times, and the more you do it, the more realistic it looks. Sometimes I will add a little bit of darker tones. I don't think I did that here, but sometimes I will add a little bit of darker tone and just little like speckles, really. And yeah, I think this was just me basing pretty much, just hitting up a little bit more of the base, giving a little bit more love to the base, and yeah, it was really fun. Again, if you've made it this far and you know who he is or know anything about this particular model, please let me know in the comments. Again, for everyone who's looking, thank you guys for making it this far. This is definitely a labor of love, and I want to keep doing really cool content for everyone, and just cool content for myself. Darker tones and just kind of adding little stippling and whatnot. I was like, I don't think I was done there. I was probably just taking a look at them, because I do that a lot. In art, sometimes you just need to step back, take a deep breath, and look at what you've done, and then go back into it. So, anyways, again, like I said, I really appreciate everyone who has subscribed. Um, I think I'm at 90 something right now, which honestly is more than I thought I would get. Um, obviously that I want more. I would love more. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It only takes a few seconds. I have been checking my analytics and whatnot, just to see, and obviously I'm going to keep doing this. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy making these videos. I enjoy getting to show people what I'm doing, and I think that's a lot of fun too. So again, thank you guys so much, and get ready for the next video. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.